It's all covered in today's China Truths.
I live on the 35th floor of a high-rise building. It's only been 2 months, and I already regret it so much it feels like my insides are rotting. Even if I sell at a loss of $5 million now, no one would buy it. Can you believe that? Honestly, living in a high-rise comes with too many problems. 10, 20, or 30 years from now, it's entirely possible that these areas will turn into slums, or even become completely uninhabited. 30 years from now, everyone who bought into high-rise apartments will realize that they were the biggest leaks waiting to be cut. Not only will they have nothing left, but the home they spent 30 years of their youth and the efforts of 3 generations to buy will turn out to be nothing more than a pile of crumbling bricks and tiles. As China's real estate market gradually collapses, the high-rise developments once praised by the Chinese Communist Party as glorious achievements are now falling off their pedestal. More and more residents are moving out of high-rise buildings, and more Chinese people are coming to realize that these towers, once symbols of China's economic boom, will one day become waste, relegated to slums. It's almost unbelievable that in the border area between Shenzhen and Dongguan, there exists a real-life high-rise slum. It's a residential complex with a garden in Guanjingtou, Dongguan City, built in 1993, barely over 30 years ago. Yet the exterior walls are already crumbling beyond repair. Many residents couldn't bear the poor living conditions and have long since moved out. Walking into this area, a sense of decay and dilapidation hangs in the air. It feels like stepping into a slum. It's frightening to imagine what these high-rise buildings, now dozens of stories tall, will look like 30 years from now. High-rise buildings have a fatal flaw that guarantees they won't end well. Something land sellers will never tell you, and definitely not the developers. What is this fatal flaw? It's that in the future, no one will want to buy high-rise apartments. This is the inevitable result of economic, historical, and external factors combined. I used to think high-rise living was great, so I rushed into buying one. But the reality is, the higher the floor, the bigger the problems. First, maintenance is extremely difficult, and the repair costs are sky-high. Right now, we may not fully grasp how serious the issue is, because most high-rises in big cities are still under 20 years old and haven't started showing major problems yet. Although many buildings in China are technically designed to last 50 years, in reality, signs of deterioration start appearing after just 25 to 30 years. Peeling walls, low water pressure, cracked pipes, aging electrical systems, and elevators. And because these are high-rises, repair costs are even more outrageous. It's a bottomless pit. Imagine how expensive it is to repair a 5- or 6-story building, let alone one that's 30 or 40 stories high. The residential maintenance fund is nowhere near enough to cover these costs. These kinds of safety risks are completely unsuitable for working-class people like us. Living high up feels like stepping on clouds. I'm constantly in a fog, especially those open-air corridor walkways. Just looking at them gives me the chills. Let me show you the railing along those corridors. It's ridiculously low. Just standing there and looking down makes my legs go weak. Can you imagine how dangerous it is if a child plays up there? It's terrifying. I have several young children, and they run out there to play every day. The moment they even try to climb that pathetically low railing, I get a shiver down my spine. The safety risk is enormous. And on days with strong winds or gloomy rainstorms, rainwater lashes in violently, and the floor becomes as slippery as ice. In the winter, when it snows, every step you take could be a slip. My spouse and I, both full-grown adults, have slipped and fallen over 10 times during winter. Can you imagine that? It scares me to death. Living on the 34th floor? My God, it feels like the whole building shakes. It's like living in hell. Look at these kinds of high-rise buildings. They're suffocatingly dense, truly oppressive to live in. Let me tell you a story. In Shijiazhuang, there's a 16-story building built in 1986. It originally had 2 elevators, but now only one still works because they're so old. If both break down, there's nothing left to use. And right now, out of the 16 floors, only the buttons for floors 1, 6, 9, and 15 still function, and even those often malfunction, trapping people inside the elevator. Beyond elevator issues, there are serious fire hazards and water leaks due to aging electrical wiring and plumbing systems, not to mention failing water pumps and sanitation systems. That's why nowadays, most of the residents in that building are elderly. The younger people who could afford it have long since moved out. So why don't they just replace the elevators? Well, for a property with a 70-year ownership term, you'd need to replace the elevators at least 3 times, and each elevator can cost several 100,000 yuan. Because the infrastructure of these high-rises has deteriorated so badly, the people who had money have already moved away. Those who are left can barely get by, and raising funds for repairs is nearly impossible. What about the maintenance fund? With today's inflation, the maintenance fees you paid years ago won't even cover the labor costs in the future. Then can I just wait for the building to be demolished and get compensated? You have to understand, developers are businessmen. Demolishing a 6-story building and replacing it with a 30-story one makes a profit. But tearing down a 30-story building, they'd have to build 60 or even 70 stories just to break even. An elderly resident shared in an interview, "I live on a high floor, and the thing I fear most is fire. I feel that if a fire breaks out, I'll have no way to escape. I can only wait to die." One time I heard there was a fire in the neighboring unit. I broke out in a cold sweat, hurriedly gathered a few important things, and got ready to flee. But then I realized the elevator had stopped working, and the staircase was filled with smoke. There was no way down. All I could do was stay inside and wait for rescue. I think that was the most terrifying moment of my life. This blogger also experienced a similar situation. He was taking the elevator to the 4th floor when it suddenly stopped. It was terrifying. Just as I was reaching the 4th floor, the elevator jerked, and the lights went out. Oh God, I couldn't contact the building management. The same thing happened before. The elevator shook while running. Now I'm too scared to take the elevator. What if one day I die in there? I used to be able to reach building management, but now I can't anymore. Hello? The elevator jolted when it got to the 4th floor. Now it only shows 2 bars. Yes. No one really knows why, but it's extremely frightening. This isn't the first time this elevator has malfunctioned. Another blogger shared, "I live on the 21st floor, with the top floor being the 27th. I've been here for over 2 years. I used to sell homes for over a decade but had never lived in a high-rise before, so I didn't understand its downsides. When I bought this place, I just thought as long as it didn't block sunlight, it was fine. So I chose the 21st floor. But after just 2 months of living here, I discovered 8 major problems. Noise. I thought living high up would reduce noise from traffic and public square dancing, but it's actually worse. Dust. It sounds unbelievable, but even at this height, there's a lot of dust. Weak signal. During emergency calls, the signal is unstable. The person on the other end can't hear clearly, and messages can take over half an hour to send. High building density, overcrowded population, cramped living environment, and a serious lack of public green space. Rapid water system degradation. From the 7th floor upward, a pressure booster pump is needed, and water tanks must be cleaned regularly. If you live high up, you have to buy a water filter. Elevators. With more than 100 households and only 2 elevators serving 4 units per floor, it gets packed during rush hours. Sometimes you wait up to 30 minutes to get in. Once inside, it stops at every floor. So annoying. Significant loss in usable space. Only about 70% of the purchased area is actually usable due to shared areas. For example, if you buy a 100-meter apartment at 7,000 yuan Mampatu, nearly 200,000 yuan is wasted on unusable space. Firefighting and rescue challenges. The current systems can't handle rescue operations above the 27th, 28th floors. Fire trucks can only reach up to around the 17th floor, and water hoses can't spray that high. Elevators and general maintenance are extremely difficult issues to resolve. In addition, water supply is also a major headache. In some places, to save costs, the water tanks are cleaned only once every 3 years, even though it should be done annually. To be blunt, what will happen when the elevators degrade in the future? Electrical systems will inevitably fail sooner or later, and the repair or replacement costs are enormous. Yet residents are not united. The management companies withdraw, and as a result, the building becomes unmanaged and filthy, no different from a slum. Analyses suggest that in the coming decades, high-rise buildings in third and fourth-tier cities will turn into ghost cities, while in first-tier cities, they'll become villages within cities with extremely low rental value. In China, the property usage rights last for 70 years, but the design lifespan of these buildings is only about 50 years, meaning residents will never actually live long enough to use up their ownership rights. In a sense, high-rise housing is a massive scam. Wow, the situation in Wuhan is even more shocking. It's not just one building, it's an entire massive area. Look ahead, more towers, do you see them? It's truly frightening. The entire urban zone in Wuhan is now filled with towering high-rises, most around 50 to 60 stories high, beyond imagination, and many people still live here. These buildings seem to have been constructed just within the past few years. They look very new. I'm flying at an altitude of about 200 meters, nearly level with the rooftops of these buildings. If there's a power outage or strong wind here, who knows what could happen? It feels extremely dangerous. It's like being in Hong Kong, where land is scarce, but Wuhan doesn't have that kind of land shortage, does it? So why build so high? Natural lighting is terrible. One building blocks the sunlight from the next, and there's absolutely no direct sunlight. Do you really think sunlight can reach through buildings that tall? Such high-rise developments have a functional lifespan of only about 15 years. After that, they'll either be demolished or turn into slums. These apartments will lose all their value and become illiquid assets. Once the elevators break and the maintenance fund runs dry, water leakage begins, elevators break down with no one to fix them, and other public facilities fall into disrepair due to lack of funds. By that time, the management company will have withdrawn, and the property becomes a complete burden, potentially a slum or subject to demolition. When the wind blows, the howling is intense. If your window glass has poor sound insulation, it's a nightmare. It feels like being on a mountaintop. Especially during heavy rain and thunderstorms, the sound of the wind is like a hurricane in a disaster movie. The entire building shakes. It feels like it's about to collapse. When lightning strikes, it feels like it's about to hit your head. People with heart conditions or high blood pressure would find it unbearable. Economist Ying Rui believes that the massive profits behind high-rise buildings are the real reason why governments and real estate developers are racing to build upward. He said that, in reality, there's no need to build so many high-rises. Why build so many? Simply to extract a lifetime's worth of money from the public in just a few years. This behavior is essentially spending 20 years of future development in advance. From now on, cities will only be able to focus on urban renewal. If they keep building, there won't be anyone left to live in them, just empty shells. In fact, there are already a ton of abandoned buildings. Yet people keep saying, new homes are selling out fast. The truth is, these new homes have become inventory, and the volume of unsold inventory is only increasing. I advise those thinking of selling their homes to cash out quickly, travel abroad, broaden their horizons, and focus on building their careers. Don't assume that high-rise buildings in today's cities are normal. Let me tell you, they're anything but normal. Don't think that an ordinary apartment in Beijing or Shanghai is really worth 10 million yuan. Once you go abroad, you'll realize it's not worth that at all.
30 years later, everyone who bought high-rise residential buildings will realize they have become the biggest fools. This is the inevitable fate of high-rise residential buildings in China, a destiny sealed from the start. Because we began late and ordinary people lacked understanding, they rushed to buy high-rise apartments during the urbanization boom of recent years. In reality, this behavior was no different from sticking out their necks and waiting for the sickle of capital to fall. High-rise residential buildings carry a fatal curse that guarantees they cannot end well. The land sellers won't tell you, and the developers even less so. What is this curse? Simply put, no one will want to inherit these high-rises in the future. In recent years, as China's urbanization accelerated, populations flooded into cities. To meet the soaring demand for housing, high-rise buildings mushroomed. Especially in the so-called golden cities, towers rose rapidly, constantly reshaping the skyline. However, as time marches on, the hidden rot of high-rise living has surfaced. Experts warn that high-rise properties offer limited appreciation, yet their maintenance costs are exorbitant, destined to become sky slums. In fact, Shenzhen already has examples. Today we address the grim reality of high-rise slums. Mei Ling, it is almost unbelievable that a real-life high-rise slum exists at the border between Shenzhen and Dongguan. In Guanjing-2, Dongguan City, a garden community built in 1993 now stands in ruin. Only a little over 30 years old, yet its outer walls are crumbling. Many owners fled early, unable to bear the dismal conditions. Step into this area and you are overwhelmed by a decaying stench, as if you had entered a real slum. One can hardly imagine what today's dozens of stories towers will look like after 30 years. Data shows that by the first half of 2024, over 30,000 fires have broken out in high-rise buildings nationwide over the past decade. Elevator accidents in residential towers make up a large portion, mainly due to overloading, overuse, and lack of maintenance. Blogger Singe points out that the first generation of super high-rises is about to enter a rapid aging phase. Once that happens, hidden dangers will multiply. Super high-rises refer to buildings with over 40 floors. Buildings, like people, have a life cycle, and the older a super high-rise gets, the more dangerous it becomes. Once the aging wave hits, elevators will break down constantly. Water and electricity systems will fail frequently. Leaks, seepage, and wall decay will become everyday problems, growing worse with each passing year. If you live above the 30th floor, facing a fire will be a nightmare because in most cities, fire equipment simply cannot reach above the 30th floor, especially in old buildings from the 80s and 90s, where the living experience is already miserable and hidden dangers are everywhere. Now, with high-rise buildings aging rapidly, the future looks grim. Once problems surface, who will step in to fix them? Developers abandon responsibility once they sell. Maintenance costs will soar. These buildings can't be demolished either. No developer is willing to touch them, and demolition costs are astronomical. Think about it. Replacing or reinforcing elevators in these towers will cost a fortune. But who will pay? Don't expect the property fund to cover it. It's nowhere near enough. Living on the 63rd floor feels like floating in the sky. I listed this unit for auction at 4.19 million yuan in April 2020. By 2025, the price has plunged to 3 million, and still, no buyers. I bought it brand new for 4.5 million yuan. I've lost 1.5 million already, not even counting the interest on my loan. Super high-rise apartments are nothing but giant traps. Yes, I was the one who bought the top floor on the 63rd floor in Guangzhou. My home is in Guanggang New City, Liwan District. Now I can't sell it. I don't dare to live in it. I am crushed by despair. Every day, waiting for the elevator drives me insane. Sometimes I seriously think about learning parachuting skills and keeping a parachute at home. Thank God there are no earthquakes in Guangzhou. Otherwise, escape would be impossible. Living in a super high-rise is truly terrifying. I pray every day that no fire breaks out. The fire ladder can't reach here. We are over 200 meters above the ground. An elderly resident once said in an interview, "Living high up, my biggest fear is fire. If it happens, there's nowhere to run, only to wait for death." One time, there was a fire next door. I broke out in a cold sweat, hurriedly packed essentials to flee, but the elevator was dead, and the stairs filled with smoke. I couldn't get down. I could only wait for rescue. That was the most terrifying moment of my life. This blogger had a similar nightmare. The elevator stopped suddenly while going up to the 4th floor. It was horrifying. On the 4th floor, the elevator suddenly shook. The lights went out. I couldn't reach property management. Oh my God, the elevator had already shaken once before. I don't dare to take it anymore. One day it might kill me. Before I could at least contact the property. Now I can't even do that. When it shook at the fourth floor, 2 signal bars were left, but no explanation was given. This elevator has had issues multiple times. At 1:30 a.m., 4 people were trapped inside for 25 minutes. Blogger Diane reminds everyone, never buy a high-rise unit. He said he bought a 20th floor apartment for the great view and lighting. After almost 3 years living there, he finds more and more problems, and he regrets it deeply. First, there's the noise problem. When I first moved in, no one lived upstairs or downstairs. But as time went on and neighbors moved in, the sound of kids screaming and high heels stomping nearly drove me insane. I had to negotiate with them constantly. Sometimes things got tense. But this is what it is. We're neighbors, like it or not. Second, the elevator problem. Every morning during rush hour, the elevator is packed. I have to wait at least 10 minutes just to get downstairs. It's frustrating and exhausting. Third, the mobile signal on higher floors is terrible. I never expected this when I bought the place. But the higher you live, the worse the signal gets. I have to walk around just to get a call through. It's like my phone became a landline. Fourth, the water supply and heating, my biggest headaches. At night, when water usage peaks, water flow becomes weak or cuts off completely. Heating is even worse. Every winter, I call 12345 to complain. Their answer? 18 degrees or more meets the standard. Basically, the heating fee is wasted. I have a child at home. I worry constantly about catching a cold. When it gets really cold, we have to rely on the air conditioner. This issue alone makes me rethink living on such a high floor. Fifth, I live in fear of power outages. Have you ever climbed 20 floors? I have. Once the power went out and I climbed all the way up. I was drenched in sweat. The moment I walked through the door, my wife asked, "Are you trying to lose weight or something?" This place makes me feel unsafe. During storms, the entire building sways. When lightning strikes, it feels like it hits inside the apartment. Blogger Chen Xiaosu and her husband paid over 3 million yuan for a 60-story high-rise unit. She said she regrets it every single day. Living 200 meters in the air is a nightmare. Living in a 200-meter high-rise feels like a constant gamble. The elevator often breaks down. When it does, or during power outages, we climb 60 floors on foot. At this height, there's no sense of safety. The railing is barely a meter tall, lower than my height. Looking down while lying here is terrifying. It's even more dangerous for kids. I offered to pay to seal the corridor railings, but management refused. I'm not afraid of heights, yet my legs shake when I stand by the railing. It's exposed to wind and rain. Screws rust, loosen, and fall off. One mistake, and it's over. Though the view is wide and lighting good, the building sways when it's windy. It's nerve-wracking. In case of fire, we're helpless. The fire ladder only reaches 100 meters. We're at 200. Firefighters can't save us. If flames rise, we're trapped. Fire kills, this is no joke. One blogger on the 50th floor shared how to survive a high-rise fire. She stayed up all night writing a guide. Her advice? Touch the door handle with the back of your hand. If it's hot, stay inside. Block door gaps with wet towels and wait. If it's not hot, check for smoke. If clear, crouch and escape via the stairs. But be quick. Smoke rises fast in a chimney effect. Within 30 seconds, fire can reach the top of a 100-meter tower. We once believed high-rises offered better living. Now we're learning the hard truth. The higher you go, the harder it gets. Maintenance is costly, and in 25 years when problems start, cracked walls, weak water pressure, broken pipes, costs will skyrocket. The community fund won't cover it. It's a bottomless pit. Think you can sell it later? Think again. As population shrinks and demand drops, these towers may become unsellable. Their height alone is a death sentence. The real issue isn't just firefighting limits or inflated public areas. It's that these buildings were built to maximize profits, not sustainability. No one planned for aging or renewal. Buy one now, and you may be stuck with a ticking time bomb.
Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.